he has he has given us his time from his busy schedule. Mashallah, he's about to submit his PhD, and he's very busy, but we requested him for the talk. So listen carefully. The webinar will be around 1 hour and 45 minutes, more or less 45 minutes for the session, and 15 minutes for the question answer session. If you have any question, you can ask in the Q&A tab. You can see below, and you can put your question, and during the question answer session, he will answer. It's better to ask the question in the question answer session, because just to avoid the interruption. So we welcome Brother Shoaib. And before I hand over the mic to Shoaib, I will recite the ayah of Quran. So Bismillah. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الذين يذكرون الله قياما وقعودا وعلى جنوبهم ويتفكرون في خلق السماوات والأرض ربنا ما خلقت هذا باطلا سبحانك فقنا عذاب النار. ربنا إنك من تدخل النار فقد أخزيته وما للظالمين من أنصار. ربنا إننا سمعنا مناديا ينادي للإيمان أن آمنوا بربكم فآمنا. ربنا فاغفر لنا ذنوبنا وكفر عنا سيئاتنا وتوفنا مع الأبرار. ربنا وآتنا ما وعدتنا على رسلك ولا تخزنا يوم القيامة إنك لا تخلف الميعاد. صدق الله العلي العظيم. Now I hand over the mic to Shoaib. You can unmute and share your experience. Thank you.
Bismillah, salatu wassalamu ala rasulillah. Jazakallah khair Irfan bhai, assalamu alaikum. Jazakallah for giving me this opportunity to speak and giving me this opportunity to share my experience and contribute a little bit to the mentorship goal which you all are very nicely planning, mashallah. And I thank all the SSMAF folks for inviting me. So the talk today will be for 40 minutes. I hopefully will not make it too boring for you. And after that, there will be a question answer session, and you can ask all your questions, or you can even put your questions in the question and answer chat box, which you can see in your Zoom, and we can answer them at the end of the talk. Or if required, Irfan bhai can stop me during the talk, inshallah. So so this talk is going to be mostly about the doctoral fellowships, and one of them, the most prestigious of them, is actually the Marie Curie fellowship, which I'm going to speak about today. And I'm going to give you a brief overview of this fellowship and the various procedures involved in bagging this fellowship, inshallah. So to begin with, I'll give you a quick background of my academic journey. I started as a bachelor's in civil engineering student in Osmania University. It was back in 2016, so I'm very old now. Then I moved on to do my master's in structural engineering at IITH.
Sorry, I request you all to please mute your mic.
Maybe I can. Okay. So I then went on to do my master's in structural engineering at IITH. And then from there, I moved to France to do my PhD in seismology. So you can see I switched a bit from engineering to seismology because that was more interesting for me. Now I'm at the University Grenoble Alps doing my PhD currently in my third year of my PhD, and it's almost at the end. So I'm going to graduate, inshallah, after the summer. Just a brief overview of the talk. So in this talk, I'll be giving you the purpose of scientific research because I think it's really important to give a prerequisite to doing research and why we do research, why we do scientific research. In the next part of the presentation, I motivate you to choose Europe, giving you some very good justification for choosing Europe. And then I'll give you the core of this presentation will be the Marie Curie doctoral fellowship. So just to point out to you, MSCA, this is the full form of this, the acronym of this fellowship. So Marie Curie, the full name of Marie Curie, Madame Marie Curie, Marie Curie Actions is the name of this funding from European Union. And I'll give you different overview of the perks and the types of training networks and other selection criteria and how you should prepare your application, for example. And at the end of this talk, I'll give you my own experience of this PhD, which I did with as a Marie Curie fellow, inshallah. So to begin with, what exactly we mean by research? I mean, um, so we are curious beings. We ask questions always, and we seek answers for these questions. And when we are seeking answers for these questions, we come up with new questions. So it's kind of a cyclic process, if you will. And I'm going to use the pointer. Yes. So it's a cyclic process and it's a never ending process, and it will only end until you go to the khabar, for example. uh, so what is the right scientific method to do research, to seek answers to your questions? So you observe something in nature, for example, you ask a question, you hypothesize your based on your observation, and you make a prediction. Then what you predict, you have to test it, for example, with an experiment in the lab or in the field or in any other way. You get some results for these experiments. If the results match the hypothesis, then you make a theory out of it, and the process continues. If your results fail, if they are negative, then you reject your hypothesis and you make a new, fresh hypothesis, and this goes on and goes on. That's the scientific method for you. Now, you get these answers, but what do you do with those answers? What do you do with those answers is the purpose of scientific research, the goals of scientific research, if you will. Um, Traditionally, there are four ways you can use your scientific research. One would be to describe, which means, for example, if you want to classify or formalize some knowledge. For example, if you study the types of penguins in Antarctica, the different types of penguins, you make a classification of different types based on various criteria. So that's kind of description. You don't do much more than that. Then the second would be predict. So you make a future prediction based on the trends of your current observation. For example, classic example is climate change. So you observe the trends in the temperature anomaly, and you make a prediction that okay, in 2100 we would be at this level of temperature change. So that's prediction. Then the third one would be to understand phenomena. For example, if you observe simple things like how plants make their food, I mean, photosynthesis. So you try to understand some physical phenomena or some biological phenomena or any other phenomena. So that's understanding. Or the fourth one could be to create a change. To this would be the applied part of the scientific research, where you use your knowledge, where you use your observations, theory, and your results to make change. For example, engineers would make things for the benefit of people. Doctors would use the knowledge of what they find to help the patients, to make them live longer, for example. So that is the fourth application of scientific research. But what would be the ultimate goal of any kind of knowledge that exists? We know that it is for recognizing and becoming closer to Allah. It is for making a ta'alluq with Allah, ta'alluq ma Allah, and to seek the qurb of Allah, to become closer to Him. That's our ultimate goal from any knowledge, not just scientific research, any human knowledge. The goal is to recognize and become closer to Allah. Now, the ayat of the Quran, which Irfan Bhai recited before we started, they are exactly where Allah Subhanahu wa Taala He describes um, the people of intelligence, the people who reason. So he recited, Irfan Bhai recited the ayat of Surah Al Imran. He recited Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. إن في خلق السماوات والأرض واختلاف الليل والنهار لآيات لأولي الألباب. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, indeed, in the creation of the heavens and the earth, and the alternation of the day and night, there are signs for the people of intelligence, the people of reason. So in the next ayat, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He describes those people of reason. They are the ones, so there are two part uh, description of the people of intelligence, the people of reason. They are the ones first who remember Allah while standing, sitting, and lying down on their sides. So this corresponds to almost every situation of a human being. So you are either standing, sitting, or lying down in your life, right? There is no other fourth position you are in. So you have to remember Allah, and then you have to reflect on the creation of the heavens and the earth. So in the next ayah, this is the description of the people uh, of the people of reason. So there are three things to see or reflect about this ayah, which I'm basically taking from a very interesting talk which I heard last year from Sheikh Mirza Beg. He said the sequence of this process is the first important thing that we should reflect on, which is to first remember Allah, have the taqwa of Allah, and then you have to reflect on the creation of the heavens and earth. And you see, the second important thing is the conjunction which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala uses. He uses and. He doesn't use any other conjunction like aw, for example. If you used aw instead of wa, so it would be grammatically correct in Arabic, but he used and, which means you have to, for example, in Boolean algebra, you have and is that both conditions should be satisfied. And what is the result of doing this, remembering Allah and reflecting on the creation of the heavens and the earth, is that you say, "Oh Lord, you didn't create this for any without any purpose. You didn't create this aimlessly. There is a purpose behind every creation." So that is the result of following this process. So that should be the ultimate goal of what we do with scientific research or any other education which you seek, or the knowledge which you seek, inshallah. So I thought this would be a very good way to start the prerequisite for doing scientific research. And you see, the problem we have today is that we have separated these two, the number one and number two. So we have people who just have religious studies in madrasas, and we have people who do excellent scientific research, but they don't recognize Allah. So both are not the right paths. You have to do both of them together, inshallah. Then you will have the benefit. So now moving on to why I suggest you should consider Europe very strongly for your research. your PhD research in particular. So there is a unique research culture here in Europe, or I would say at least in France, very different from that in India, because the way you ask questions, the way you interrogate, that that is really important. The way you have your ideas. I mean, research is all about ideas. So the ideas drive your results, and I mean everything else. So the ideas, the sharing of ideas, and uh, the collaborations, those are really interesting, which I found in Europe. Then you have some very prestigious fellowships. One of them is the Marie Curie Fellowship, which we are going to talk about today. But there are many other prestigious fellowships and fellowships which are which are very exciting for master students who finish the masters and are going to do the research. And the next good thing is about the network, because EU is like a one country, if you will. It's because there's no borders and all. You travel, you exchange ideas, you have a good network all across the European Union. So there is no barriers, you could say, to stop you from networking. Then there's also the the good benefit of having multiple cultures in a single place. You learn a new language, for example. You broaden your horizons when you have multiple cultures. And in for example, in my office there are people from multiple nationalities from around 50 countries, I think so. So you interact with people, you exchange ideas, and that broadens your horizons in itself. Then one of the good things about being in Europe is you can travel to other European countries without any hassles, because you don't have to get a visa. Because if you have a visa for France, for example, or for Germany, for example, you can travel to other European countries without any other visa or any other paperwork. So that's another good thing. But even if you are not convinced by these reasons, then I think you will be definitely convinced why you should come to Europe with these two reasons. So that's cleaner air, one, and free healthcare. So cleaner air, because definitely from where I come, it's really difficult to even breathe when you go outside. In Hyderabad, I'm from Hyderabad, so it's really difficult to even breathe properly, because you breathe all the uh, polluted air. So when you come to Europe, when I came to Europe 3 years back, it was a really great change. I mean, it was a great deal for me, because whenever you go out of your home and you take a deep breath and you say Alhamdulillah, that's the best feeling you can have. And then you have free healthcare. This is uh, in contrast with the US system, because in US, I know there's a lot of debate about the healthcare issues. But in Europe, okay, you have to pay taxes, but your taxes cover a great number of benefits. I mean, and healthcare is free. I mean, almost free. You don't have to pay anything when you go to a doctor. Everything is covered from your taxes, for example. So so it's good. It's good to have a good healthcare policy when you are selecting your country. Um, okay. Now coming to the core of this presentation, I'm hopefully on time. Uh, yes. So Marie Curie fellowships. So what's the purpose of this fellowships? It's to bring talent to Europe. In one word, if I want to summarize, it's to bring talent to Europe from different parts of the world. And when you come here, you have a really good environment to do your research in international environment, as I said before. And they really concentrate on the innovation aspect of it. They have projects which are really new and which are going to make a lot of change in the next 10, 20 years. So the you should definitely consider that aspect of research, because if you do research which is outdated, then there's no news. if you even publish 10 papers in your PhD, there's no use of doing outdated research, right? It should be something innovative. So the funding aspect, the funding is, I mean, one of the most coveted in Europe. So Marie Curie fellowships, they offer the best salaries for PhD students, and they also offer you, in addition to your salaries, other project related costs. For example, they take care of your travel, of your experimental expenses, of different expenses that you may have. Any expensive, you can get it covered by your fellowship, and this is in addition to your salaries, I'm saying. And then the exciting part is the mobility, because um, since you are in Europe, as I said, it's easy to move from one country to other, and there's a lot of traveling just for work. I mean, this is not for fun. I mean, not traveling for fun. That's separate issue. Uh, just traveling for your work, you are in one country on one day, you are in another country another day. So it's like just keeping, uh, you know, moving around Europe to work, and that's included in your I mean, in your responsibilities as a PhD student. I mean, you have to move. So that's really good for moving across Europe and getting your collaborations. Then the duration of this fellowship is typically 3 years. They fund you for 3 years. If your PhD is more than 3 years, then you will be funded by some other fellowship for the last part of the year. So it ends after 3 years, typically. Okay. Uh, just to highlight the benefits, I mean, the benefits of this fellowship. So you are working with the finest research with some of the finest research topics, with finest researchers in your field, and in some of the finest universities. So that's all win-win situation. I mean, win-win situation for you and for the researchers. Then now, making a network is really not an easy task. In research, you have to spend time, a lot of time, and you have to make connections and all. But for you, because you are in a training network, which I'm going to explain in the next slide, this training network is a consortium of universities, because uh, the PhD positions are a group of PhD positions. It's not one PhD position. So you are already in a network, so they are giving you a ready-made network, so that you don't have to work so hard to make your own network. So that's a great benefit. Then you can travel to different places to publish your research, I mean, to share your research, for example. Then you also have, as I said, in addition to your living allowance, which is your salary, you also have your mobility allowance and your family allowance. For example, if you have a family at the time of joining, you are paid an extra, I don't know, 500 euros or something for that. Then the last great benefit of being in Europe is that, yeah, it doesn't take all your life to finish your PhD. Like in some other countries, I know, where they even take some 7, 8 years to finish the PhD. It's really, really, I mean, if you prefer doing your PhD, you want your to get done with your PhD quickly, then Europe is a really good place, and still continue doing your research after your PhD as a postdoc. Okay. Now, I mean, I don't like to put a lot of text in my slides, but I had to put it anyways. So I'll not read everything. It's just so what you need to understand from this slide is just that, what is a training network? I mean, it's a group of universities. It's a consortium of industry and university partners, which come together and they propose different PhD positions, so that they achieve a specific goal, a global goal. But each PhD has its own specific goals. So, for example, in my project, we have 15 partners, 10 universities, and 10 and 5 industry partners. So it's a consortia. So that is a training network. Now, in training networks, you have different types of training networks. The innovative, training networks are the most common, which is also for my project. Then there are European joint doctorates where you have degrees from 2 or 3 universities. Then you have industrial doctorates, which are mostly done in the industry, which is also a very good idea. I mean, you have some collaboration with the university and the industry. And then there's co-fund, which is different. But what for you, the takeaway is that you don't care about all these different training networks. You only have to look for a good PhD position that fits you, which I'm going to detail in the next slide. So how do you really find your PhD that really suits you? So you have to look at what really bothers you, or what are the things you care about the most, because ultimately that, otherwise if there's no motivation, there's no good research results from your studies, right? So you need to have a good motivation to do your PhD. So that's the first circle, which is your passion. And then your own experience, the projects you worked on in your PhD, in your masters, in your bachelor's, the different courses you took in your degree, what you have been trained at. I mean, what you are good at, basically. That's your experience. The projects you worked on, all those come in your experience. Then there's the PhD proposals, which are interesting for you. There may be multiple PhD proposals that are interesting to you. So how do you choose the right one? So when all these overlap, your interest, your experience, and and the available opportunities, when all these overlap, that's your PhD, and that's the PhD you should aim for. And remember, all of this is inside your ultimate goal, which I just told you a few slides back. Okay. Now, one of the best things I like about finding a PhD proposal in Europe is that it's very easily available, easy to search for, using the Euraxis web portal. So this is really important for you. This slide is really important. So you want to look for PhD. Where do you start? How do you start? There are so many universities, there are so many opportunities, there are so many PhD proposals out there. So how do you look for the right one? So this portal, Euraxis is a networking portal for researchers in Europe and some other countries. So you can go to their job search webpage. I can put this in the, I can share my screen and in fact show you how it works. So I'm going to stop the share, and I'm going to go to this web page now. I'm going to share my screen again. Irfan bhai, can you confirm if you see the web page?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Yes. Okay, perfect. So this web page, which I'm going to also put it in the chat later. So you can filter the search for your for your own research interest, whatever could be. You can just put in some keywords. You can also select the country, for example, but just keep it open for all Europe. You can select the different programs, which I said, for example, Mary Curie is this one, or you can select all the H 2020. Whenever you see H 2020, it's the Horizon 2020 program of the European Union, which is going to fund a lot of research. So my suggestion is, whenever you search, click all H 2020, select all of H 2020 options, and those will be the best, fellowships. Then you have researcher profile. For example, for you, it would be the first stage researcher because it's a PhD. Um, then you can also look for sector, because if you are adamant on doing a PhD in industry, you don't want to go to a university for the PhD. You want to do it with a startup or a company, then you can choose that, or you can choose any other option here. and I don't think this is very important. So let's just search for any other, for example, let's search for biotechnology. Enter. So we get around 355 jobs. So you see, PhD in biomedical engineering in Sweden in this university. So that's one of a, so there's application deadline 24th June, and you get all of the research. Like that, you have many other opportunities. You can look one after the other. You can filter out some, and you can also filter out through countries. For example, I just want to look, for example, in Germany. Let's do Germany. Germany. Okay. So you have 8 PhD positions in biotechnology and in Germany. So you can also choose first as researcher because it's a PhD that you're looking for. So there are different researcher stages in Europe. Generally, researcher 1 is PhDs and postdocs. Researcher 2 is like more established researcher. An established researcher is professors. Even professors have fellowships. Then you can also, okay, you can also select research field from here in addition to your keywords. For example, in biotechnology, you want some specific uh, subject in biotechnology which you are interested in. For example, plants. So you get all the so any offer which has the keyword plant, you get in this list. Then you can also choose your, for example, in chemistry, plant and chemistry. So there is one PhD position which is something to do with plants and in chemistry. So this is the way you search. This is really simple. I mean, you don't have to put a lot of effort of going into uh, different university websites, and everything is available for you in one place. Let me put that in the chat because it's really important for you. So, okay, let me share my screen back to the presentation. Can you see the screen, Irfan?
Yes.
Oh, perfect. So that's the takeaway from this slide. Okay, I have some time. So I'll quickly give you a selection procedure. This is also important. I'll give you the selection procedure that they followed for my project around 4 years back when they were selecting the PhD students. So the first step is that they make proposals. So the good thing is in many of the Marie Curie Fellowship proposals, you don't have to write your own research proposal. By the way, that's a good thing if you have your own proposal. But in this case, the proposals are already there. Like, for example, you are applying to a job, the proposal is already there, and you just have to see if it fits your interest. And you have to prepare a motivation letter that fits that details why you are motivated for this research. So it's very easy. So they post it on the Euraxis web portal. They also post it on the project website. They also post it on some focused groups, like in seismology and earth science for my case. And they also posted it on the universities which were going to host the PhD students. And this was 3 months before the closing of the application. So you have around 3 months, more or less, to apply. And okay, this is a case study. So this is just for my project. It can vary depending on project to project. So there were 110 applications, which means 15. So there are 15 vacancies, and that means 8 applications per vacancy, around that. Then they filtered 39 applications, and finally they recruited 14 students. And I mean, in Europe, it's really a thing that they select equal number of male and female. So you see, from the 110 applications, they selected equal number of male and female to interview them. So sometimes you can be at a disadvantage here if you are if there are too many males and less females. The advantage is to the female candidate. And then finally, after interviewing, they selected 6 male and 8 female. Okay. And the acceptance rate is 13% because you have finally the 14 students out of the 110 applications. So it was 13%, which is, I would say, a little bit competitive for this project. Uh, then these are the nationalities of different students selected for this project, the 15 students. So it's a really good mix. Okay, so they followed these criteria for the selection. So the candidate should be holding a master's degree. So let me tell you one important thing. In Europe, people, the professors, they look for master's student for a PhD because the PhD is just for 3 years and you are supposed to have a master's degree. For example, in the US, you can have a bachelor's degree and you can still apply for a PhD because during your PhD, you do a lot of courses. So the first 2 years are almost like a master's degree, even though you are enrolled in a PhD. So in Europe, it's not like that. In Europe, it's just a 3-year PhD and you just do research. So they see that the candidate is having a master's degree for applying for a PhD. Okay. And of course, you should not have a PhD already. So you cannot do a double PhD. This is your first PhD. And not having worked as a researcher for the last 4 years. So you are a new researcher. You are an early stage researcher. You are just jumping into research. So that's a good point for them. Then the most important one is that they look for the coherence, that is the overlap between the experience the candidate has, the master specialization of the candidate, and the PhD proposal, the proposed PhD. So when these three were matching, that's the plus point. Of course, as I said, you have this gender equity thing. If there are many males and 1 or 2 females, then the females have an advantage. That's how things work here. Then there's no preference to nationality. That's good. Then let me also tell you my own experience, because that's also hopefully going to motivate you more. So I did my PhD in the project called Urbasis EU. So that was an acronym for urban seismology. So the goal is to address new challenges in urban engineering seismology. So there is a consortium, as I said you before, training network. This is the training network of our project. There were 15 different entities. 10 of them are universities and 5 of them are industry partners in all around Europe, different countries in Europe. And 15 PhD students were recruited to work in different universities and different companies to achieve the global goal of this IT and this innovative training network. And I worked in the middle of this spectrum of PhD students. So the goals of this project addressed both seismology and engineering, and I was kind of working at the center, at the overlap of seismology and engineering, neither pure seismology, neither nor pure engineering. So what you see here is WP. WP means a work package. So the project is divided into work packages, and to make things easy to categorize the different objectives of the project. And I worked towards seismic pentamaterials, which are uh, something new in seismology and earthquake engineering. And in this PhD, I had to move. As I said, they encourage a lot of mobility. So my host institution was UGA, which is the University Grenoble Alpes in France. And my secondment institutions, I mean, which means the institutions where I had to move for a short period of time during my PhD, uh, were in Italy and Germany. So that gives you a lot of chance to collaborate, to network, and to broaden your network in a way. And it's really beneficial for your research, because you exchange ideas with different researchers from Europe, who are really the experts in their own sense. So you can have an expert in France, an expert professor in France, an expert in Italy, an expert in Germany. So you take from all of them. So that's a really great advantage when you're doing a PhD in a training network. Okay, so that's my PhD. But the most important thing I would like to share with you is that I love sustainable practices. So wherever we go, it's all using a bicycle. So to work, to the supermarket, or for fun. We don't pollute the air, and we don't use any cars here. At least if you don't want to, it depends on you really. And you know the pavement in front of my building, uh, two-thirds of it is for bicycles, and just a narrow one-third is for cars and other transport. So the people here in Europe, they give a really good importance to sustainable practices like this. So that's a really important thing. I mean, in this era, I mean, you breathe clean air. You don't get sick a lot. In India, I used to get sick really frequently. So here, alhamdulillah, it's really good in that way. Okay, so just to give the key points from my presentation and to summarize at the end, I think I have 2 minutes more. So that's on time. So remember the ultimate goal uh, which I shared with you in the beginning is to uh, recognize Allah, and to make a connection. You have to make a taluk with Allah, and you have to connect with Allah. That's the ultimate goal of your existence. So why not use your research for that? Uh, so Europe is a great place to start your research as a PhD student, because that's your first um, experience in research. So Europe is really a good place. It's multicultural, as I said, and it's really a good mix, and an international, in the sense of international. Uh, then Marie Curie fellowships, the ones you should look for, because they are the most prestigious, and they give you a really good head start in your PhD. Uh, friends from the US, they say Marie Curie fellowship as a research honeymoon, because you're paid so well. So it's like your research honeymoon in Europe. So you should really look for Marie Curie fellowships when you look for PhDs in Europe. Then you should start searching now, because it's a good time to. I mean, it's actually late, I would say. You should have started in around January, February, March, because for the for if you're a master student in your final year now, the PhDs in Europe normally they start from September, October. So the academic year, for example, starts in October, and the application deadlines are around May or June. So it's good to quickly check using the Euraxis link which I sent you for the PhD proposals. Then as soon as you find these interesting proposals, contact your research professors. Okay, that's really important, because for me it was like that. I just sent an email one fine day. I just thought this is good for me for the position which I'm working for now as a PhD. My colleague in my masters, he said, okay, this position is open, okay, maybe you should apply for this. I quickly emailed the professor. I got a reply. We set up a Skype meeting. In a week, I had the offer. In 1 week, from mailing him to the uh, getting the offer, it was just 1 week. So it's that quick. You have to keep your CV ready and your motivation letter ready. That's the key application requirements. That's it. If he's interested, he will give you. And remember, they read every single email. I mean, you should not think that supervisors don't read emails. They read every single email. Maybe they don't reply to all the emails, but they read every email. So keep it short, keep it to the point, but also show your motivation, and maybe attach your CV, for example. It's really helpful to show your research interest, of course, and your background. Then use the mentorship offer. I mean, these people, I mean, they are doing a great job. Sirin Bhai and all the SSMF folks, they have put up a really uh, great initiative to mentor the students who are now going to masters or PhD students abroad. So it's a really good opportunity and a platform for you all to use this mentorship offered to you. So keep using these opportunities and ask questions. Okay, that is about it. So thank you for listening. And if you have any questions, then we can do it now, inshallah. Jazakallah
Thank
khair.
you very much, Jazakallah Shoaib bhai. So
Yeah.
you can ask your question in Urdu also. Don't hesitate to ask.
Yes, पूछ सकते हो भाई.
Yeah, yeah.
प्रॉब्लम नहीं है कोई.
हेलो अस्सलाम वालेकुम
वालेकुम सलाम.
जी दिस इज मोहम्मद अली रजा आई हैव डन माय मास्टर्स इन इकोनॉमिक्स तो
Okay.
मेरा बेसिक क्वेश्चन ये रहेगा कि जो डोमेन है हमारा मैंने इकोनॉमिक्स में करा है तो
जी.
मेरा इरादा है कि यूरोप में मैं पीएचडी करूं तो इसके लिए लाइक उसमें अपॉर्चुनिटीज और इसमें मुझे ऐसा सुनने में आया है कि जो सोशल साइंस बैकग्राउंड है उसमें काफी फंड कम फंड आती है रिलेटिवली इफ यू आर कंपेयरिंग विद द साइंस तो आपको कैसा लगता है कि अपॉर्चुनिटी है हमारे लिए सोशल साइंस बैकग्राउंड के लिए?
तो यूरोप में सोशल साइंसेस के भी बहुत ज़्यादा अपॉर्चुनिटीज़ है, स्पेशली फ्रांस में जहाँ मैं पीएचडी कर रहा हूँ, मैं तो बहुत देखा. और मेरी क्यूरी फेलोशिप सिर्फ साइंस के लिए नहीं है, सिर्फ फिजिकल साइंसेस और लाइफ साइंसेस के लिए नहीं है. हर साइंस कवर हो जाती है इसमें. सोशल साइंस, फिजिकल साइंस, लाइफ साइंस, सब साइंसेस कवर होते हैं. और इकोनॉमिक्स के लिए लिबरल आर्ट्स फॉर एग्जांपल, इसके भी बहुत ज़्यादा अपॉर्चुनिटीज़ है. एक बार आप यूरैक्सिस ट्राई करें क्या, ये जो मैं आपको दिखाया था अभी प्रेजेंटेशन में?
जी मैंने किया था, एक बार ट्राई किया था. काफी सारी चीजें हैं लेकिन इसमें बहुत प्री रिक्विजिट्स हैं, जैसे कि रिसर्च 1, रिसर्च 2, रिसर्च 3 ऐसे कैटेगराइज करते हैं ना, लाइक अलग अलग प्रोजेक्ट्स के लिए. तो मुझे वो समझ नहीं आया कि रिसर्च 1 क्या हो गया, R1, R2, R3. मतलब मुझे ऐसा लग रहा है कि लाइक
जी.
हेलो, आई एम ऑडिबल?
जी जी, आ रही है आवाज. सॉरी.
हाँ, मैं ये कह रहा था लाइक R1, R2, R3 करके कैटेगराइज किया हुआ है हर एक लाइक रिसर्च प्रोजेक्ट्स में. मैंने काफी मतलब लाइक सर्व किया था उसमें, तो ये सारी चीजें थी उसमें. अब मुझे समझ नहीं आ रहा था लेकिन हाउ टू लाइक अप्लाई, हाउ टू प्रोसीड द नेक्स्ट
तो
मूव.
जब आप यूरैक्सिस में सर्च करते हैं, यूरैक्सिस में आपको
जी.
फिल्टर्स में आप R1 सेलेक्ट करिए, सिर्फ R1.
ओके ओके.
क्योंकि
जी.
R1 इज फॉर अर्ली स्टेज रिसर्चर, पीएचडी
या
स्टूडेंट्स.
जी.
तो उस तरीके से सिर्फ आपको जो रिलेवेंट है वही मिलेंगे. अगर आप कोई फिल्टर नहीं अप्लाई करें तो उसमें प्रोफेसर्स के लिए भी रिसर्च पोजीशंस रहते हैं, विजिटिंग प्रोफेसर्स के लिए, तो वो तो अपने को काम नहीं आता, राइट? सो उसको
जी.
कर सकते हैं. और इकोनॉमिक्स में आई थिंक इकोनॉमिक्स में है, पॉलिसी में बहुत है. पॉलिसी, इकोनॉमिक पॉलिसी के लिए बहुत है आजकल. क्लाइमेट चेंज का भी बहुत चल रहा, तो उसके रिलेटेड बहुत ज्यादा है ये.
तो एनवायरमेंटल लाइक साइंस में आ जाएगा बेसिकली, आई गेस.
देखिए, फॉर एग्जांपल मैं जो आपको दिखाया, प्रोजेक्ट्स जनरली ऐसे रहते, 15 पीएचडी स्टूडेंट्स का रहता. तो ये 15 पीएचडी स्टूडेंट्स में, अब मेरे केस में फिजिक्स और इंजीनियरिंग का पूरा मिक्स था, और उसमें इंश्योरेंस कंपनीज भी थे. इंश्योरेंस कंपनीज, 5 इंश्योरेंस कंपनीज थे मेरे प्रोजेक्ट में, जिसमें स्टूडेंट्स काम करें. मैं आपको बताने वाला
जी.
हूँ. देखिए ये फॉर एग्जांपल आप इकोनॉमिक्स कह रहे हैं, तो
Yes.
आपके केस में कोई एक प्रोजेक्ट होगा फॉर एग्जांपल, जिसमें इकोनॉमिक्स और एनवायरमेंटल साइंस दोनों का इक्वल मिक्सचर है, कंपनीज, यूनिवर्सिटीज, रिसर्च सेंटर्स। तो सब स्टूडेंट्स एक ही चीज पे काम नहीं करते, सब एनवायरनमेंट पे काम नहीं करते, सब इकोनॉमिक्स पे काम नहीं करते। थोड़े से स्टूडेंट्स इकोनॉमिक्स पे, थोड़े एनवायरमेंटल साइंस पे, थोड़े इंजीनियरिंग एस्पेक्ट पे। तो एक प्रोजेक्ट का ग्लोबल
Basically, the domain is all compiled, I guess. Combined.
एग्जैक्टली
Combined way से research कर रहे हैं. हाँ.
मेरी क्यूरी फेलोशिप्स और ये आईटीएन ट्रेनिंग नेटवर्क का पर्पस ही ये है कि ये लोग मतलब एक चीज का प्रोजेक्ट प्रपोज ही नहीं करते कोई भी। सब इसमें मतलब एक बड़ा ग्रुप रहता, who are working towards a common goal, but still each individual PhD has its own purpose. तो मेरे ख्याल से इकोनॉमिक्स के भी बहुत होने चाहिए।
सर मुझसे मैं एक और क्वेश्चन पूछना चाह रहा था, which is very important. एक प्री रिक्विजिट होता है ना कि उनके पास एक पब्लिश पेपर होना चाहिए या समथिंग, कुछ ऐसा है क्या, लाइक फॉर एलिजिबिलिटी क्राइटेरिया?
मेरे भी ज्यादा पब्लिश पेपर्स कुछ नहीं थे, मतलब उतना एक्सपेक्ट नहीं करते। अगर वो लोग आपके बैकग्राउंड और आपके स्किल्स, आपके रिलेवेंट एक्सपीरियंस से इवन आप प्रोजेक्ट पे काम करें बट पब्लिश नहीं करें, वो भी आपका मैच हो रहा, तो परफेक्ट। आई मीन आपका
Like I have done departmental research, like एक टर्म पेपर होता है जो हम करते हैं, सबको करना होता है वो। तो बेसिकली वो तो इंडियन इकोनॉमी में था, मतलब जो डोमेन था जो मैंने किया था एफडीआई पे। तो वो तो शायद मुझे नहीं लगता रेलेवेंट होंगे उनके रिसर्च बैकग्राउंड में, क्योंकि उनका फिर काफी चीजें बहुत वास्ट होगा या अलग होगा, एंटायरली डिफरेंट। तो हम उसको कोलाइड
आप,
डिसाइड नहीं कर सकते।
आपको कभी भी ऐसा नहीं रहता है कि ऐसा हो। मतलब मेरा भी नहीं था। आपको अपने आप को बेचना पड़ता, आपकी आपकी एक्सपीरियंस को सेल करना पड़ता आपको इन अ वे। आपके कौन से आप इंडियन इकोनॉमी पे काम करें, पर आपके कौन से स्किल्स वाइल डूइंग योर रिसर्च, आपके कौन से स्किल्स आपको इस आने वाले जो प्रपोजल है पीएचडी का उसमें हेल्प कर सकते, विच आर इन योर फेवर। तो आपको सेल करना पड़ता ना। तो मोटिवेशन लेटर में वही लिखना पड़ता आपको बेसिकली, या सुपरवाइजर से जब आप कांटेक्ट करते फर्स्ट टाइम, आपको यही लिखना पड़ता है
यस।
क्यों आपके ये वाला स्किल, फॉर एग्जांपल आपके बहुत स्किल्स है, आपके XYZ skills are relevant to this PhD project which is proposed by this supervisor. तो वो तो एग्जैक्टली आपको नहीं मिलता कहीं भी बहुत।
लाइक वन मोर क्वेश्चन इज देयर, लाइक हमें सुपरवाइजर को कांटेक्ट करने की जरूरत है जैसे ईमेल के थ्रू, तो वो इसी पोर्टल से मिलेगा या फिर मुझे लाइक
कभी कभी उसमें
उनका कोई
रहता,
अलग?
कभी कभी उसमें लिखा हुआ रहता कि कांटेक्ट दिस एड्रेस, नहीं तो आपको ईमेल सर्च करना पड़ता, गूगल करके आपको मिल जाता। मतलब ईमेल तो छुपा हुआ नहीं रहता किसका भी, उसका नाम
जो
अगर
मतलब लाइक लाइक जो प्रोजेक्ट जो प्रोफेसर उसमें काम कर रहे हैं या फिर उनके अंडर है, तो मैं उन्हें करने की जरूरत है, लाइक उन्हें कांटेक्ट करने की जरूरत है ईमेल के थ्रू,
जी
अपना इंटरेस्ट दिखाते हुए रिसर्च जो भी है उस प्रोजेक्ट से रिलेटेड।
एग्जैक्टली जो प्रोजेक्ट के पीआई है फॉर एग्जांपल, या जो उस फॉर एग्जांपल मैं जैसा बताया कि 15 पीएचडी स्टूडेंट्स है, 15 प्रोफेसर्स है, तो एग्जैक्टली उस पोजीशन के प्रोफेसर जो उसके लिए क्या बोल सकते हैं उसमें, मतलब जो प्रोफेसर उस पोजीशन के लिए रिक्रूट कर रहा, उसको आप ईमेल कर सकते हैं इंस्टेड ऑफ द पीआई, कि
हाँ
डायरेक्टली आप।
एग्जैक्टली तो बेसिकली एक रिसर्च ग्रुप है, हमें वहाँ वहाँ पे अंदर जाना है और अ, उससे ही कांटेक्ट करना है बेसिकली।
हाँ, इंडिविजुअल नॉर्मल पीएचडी पोजीशन के जैसा, जैसा आप करते हैं वैसा।
जी, थैंक यू सो मच सर फॉर द इंफॉर्मेशन।
कुछ क्वेश्चन चैट बॉक्स में आप देख सकते हैं शोभ भाई।
Will we get the recording of this video? Inshallah, yes. Recording. What is a good time to apply for Marie Curie PhD fellowship program? As I said, the best time to look for PhD opportunities is around January to March even now you will have some application open, because some of the PhD positions, they are not filled until they find the best candidate for this position. So they keep it open. But the best time to apply, the good time to apply is January to May, I would say. That's the best time to contact the supervisors and send your CVs or motivation letters. Another point to keep in mind is that you prepare your IELTS if required. For me, it was not required, because I mean, even if it's in English, they were convinced from the Skype interview or the degree of the language degree, the language of my master's degree. It was in English, so they were convinced. So they didn't ask for any IELTS or TOEFL for me. It was just a Skype interview.
So one more thing I just want to ask about like research proposal के बारे में पूछना चाह रहा था कि like जो project होगा मैं जिसमें apply करूंगा उससे related मुझे एक research proposal तैयार करके फिर send करना होगा, आप ऐसा कह रहे हैं?
तो ये थोड़ा कंफ्यूजिंग रह सकता है आपके लिए। ये रिसर्च प्रपोजल लिखना हमेशा जरूरी नहीं है, क्योंकि जैसा मेरे केस में था और बहुत सारे मेरी क्यूरी फेलोशिप पीएचडी पोजीशंस के केस में है कि प्रपोजल ऑलरेडी आपके लिए लिखा हुआ है बाय द प्रोफेसर हु इज लुकिंग फॉर अ पीएचडी स्टूडेंट। वो प्रोफेसर खुद, वो रिसर्चर खुद से वो बनाते प्रपोजल। तो आपको कुछ नहीं करना पड़ता, आपको सिर्फ ये देखना है कि आपके एक्सपीरियंसेस, आपके पैशन, आपका इंटरेस्ट मैच हो रहा है या नहीं हो रहा, बस उतना ही देखना है। तो आपको उसमें कुछ करना नहीं पड़ता, रिसर्च प्रपोज नहीं करना पड़ता, बिकॉज इट्स ऑलरेडी प्रपोज। सो यू जस्ट हैव टू शो द मोटिवेशन।
ये क्वेश्चन और भी है, ये पहले चैट बॉक्स में देख लीजिए शुभ।
Does the UK have free healthcare as well? I don't know. नहीं मालूम।
No, they don't have healthcare. You have to buy the insurance.
Okay.
Mashallah. Rashid from UK. और किसी का कुछ क्वेश्चन है?
Yes, I'm. But the professor informed me that life science in Europe is not as. One second. It depends. Okay, the question is that someone is asking if life sciences in Europe are not as good as the UK or US in terms of facilities and laboratories. It really depends. I mean, for me, it was even better than the US, because the domain in which my professor works, he's one of the pioneer of this field. He had the first paper in this field, so he's kind of the pioneer of this field. So it depends on each and every case. I mean, it varies from case to case, because labs are different across different countries. Some of them are really good, some of them are mediocre. Facilities depends on the funding. For example, if they have good funding, they'll have good facilities. That's directly proportional. So if someone is having a good funding in Europe, that lab will have a good facility in Europe. I mean, you don't need to compare it to. But in fact, what I say for PhD, for research, you should never look for university rankings. That's out of the window. I mean, throw it out of the window. University rankings don't mean anything for PhDs, or unless you are really interested in getting the prestigious university tag after you graduate. I mean, otherwise it's really not useful. I mean, you should look for the facilities, as this brother says. You should look for the facilities and the lab and the supervisor. These are really important. Your environment is really important. Who is supervising you is really important. But to say in general, maybe life sciences in Europe is not good as UK or US, maybe, I don't know. That's a general statement, and that's the opinion of your professors. So, but if you look at each and individual lab which you are targeting, then you should compare a lab from Europe to that lab, to a similar lab in the US. If the US one is better, then target the US one. I mean, there's no problem. So it's all case by case. Do we need to do cold emailing for getting a PhD position in Europe? I mean, yes, you have to be stubborn at some point. I mean, you can't stop emailing because you're not getting a reply. But if a professor does not answer, you have to send him an email first. You wait for a week. If there is no reply, you send a reminder, gentle reminder. Then if there is still no reply, maybe send another gentle reminder, but stop after some point. I mean, maybe he's not interested, so it's not good. Then, are there any PhD opportunities for earth science students? Of course there are. And what is the best way to approach the professor? So there are a lot of opportunities in earth science. Earth science is quite big in itself. So there are lots of opportunities. France is really good for earth science. Germany is also really good. Italy is good. I mean, every country is good in some or the other way. So there are a lot of opportunities for sure. You just have to search for them. You have to invest time in searching for them. Otherwise, you won't find them. What is the best approach? What is the best way to approach the professor? It's by sending an email. If you cannot meet them in person, of course, meeting them in person at a conference is the best way to establish a connection, to build your network. So in your masters, if you go to a conference, or if you have the opportunity to visit another country, or join an international conference where there are professors and researchers from different parts of the world, then definitely you should meet them in person. But if you can't, then the best approach, best alternative is to email them, to show them your motivation for doing research in the lab. And you can even speak to their postdocs or PhDs to find out more about the current research, because you don't want to ask them about a paper they published in maybe 1995. So when you are not even born. So you don't want to do that. You want to ask them, or you want to look for PhD positions in the work they are doing right now. For example, if the research is not already proposed, you have to look for something which is going to be done in the lab. So that will make them excited. The professor will be excited because you're asking him something which he is planning to do, and is probably planning to hire a PhD student in that field, in that particular domain. So that's the best approach. Okay.
Yeah, I think the time is running. If anybody has some question, you can ask quickly. Otherwise, we will end the meeting.
I've just finished my bachelor's. So may I ask a question related to research? Yeah, you can, of course. If
Assalamualaikum bhai, am I audible?
Walaikum salam. Yes.
भाई क्वेश्चन मेरा ये था, एक्चुअली अभी हमारा स्टैटिस्टिक्स से बीएससी कंप्लीट हुआ है, एंड जो हमारा डिसर्टेशन था बैचलर्स में जो सबमिट करते हैं वो सस्टेनेबल डेवलपमेंट गोल से रिलेटेड था, मॉडर्न कॉन्ट्रासेप्टिव मेथड्स, यूजेज ऑफ मॉडर्न कॉन्ट्रासेप्टिव मेथड्स। एंड जो मास्टर्स मेरा है वो मैंने अप्लाई किया है, रशिया में हो रहा है, और उसका जो कोर्स है वो है रिलेटेड टू बिग डेटा इन इकोनॉमी, MSc। तो और यहाँ पर जो भी स्टैटिस्टिक्स पढ़ते हैं तो हमने देखा है मेनली डेटा साइंस फील्ड को परसू करते हैं। तो मेरा क्वेश्चन ये था कि यहाँ पर हम देख रहे हैं, मतलब ऐसा हमें फील हुआ कि चीज़ें अलग अलग हो रही हैं, जैसे कि डिसर्टेशन हमने की तो वो सस्टेनेबल डेवलपमेंट गोल से रिलेटेड है, एंड मास्टर्स जो है हमारा प्योर डेटा साइंस में नहीं है, वो इकोनॉमी से रिलेटेड हो रहा है। तो क्या ये चीज़ रिसर्च में कोई दिक्कत क्रिएट करेगी क्या?
रशिया का क्राइटेरिया तो मेरे को एग्जैक्टली नहीं मालूम, पर आप बोले कि पीएचडी रशिया में है, राइट?
नो, पीएचडी इन यूरोप, बट रशिया में हमारा मास्टर्स हो रहा है, अभी मैंने अप्लाई किया है तो उसमें एक्सेप्टेंस है हमारा। तो ये इकोनॉमी से रिलेटेड था, बिग डेटा इन इकोनॉमी। तो ये हमें फील हो रहा था कि चीज़ें काफ़ी डिफरेंट हो रही हैं हमारे इसमें एकेडमिक जर्नी में। तो क्या ये रिसर्च में कोई प्रॉब्लम क्रिएट करता है?
ऐसे तो लोग डोमेन चेंज भी करते हैं बहुत बार, बट उनको एक्सपीरियंस दिखाना पड़ता है उसमें। क्योंकि मैं जैसा बोला, यूरोप में पीएचडी शॉर्ट रहता कंपेयर टू यूएस और इंडिया, जहाँ पे 5-6 साल से ज़्यादा भी हो सकते हैं। तो शॉर्ट पीएचडी के लिए जनरली लोग एक्सपीरियंस वाले रिसर्चर्स को प्रमोट करते हैं। आई मीन अगर आपका बैकग्राउंड, इवन आपका मास्टर्स डोमेन अलग है, पर उसमें आप प्रोजेक्ट किसी और काम में करें, तो वो भी आपके लिए बेनिफिशियल हो सकता है। आप बोले कि पीएचडी आपको मिल गया या आप अप्लाई करें?
नो भाई, अभी मुझे मास्टर्स मिला है रशिया में, और वो जो कोर्स है वो है बिग डेटा इन इकोनॉमी। तो मैं कह रहा था कि अगर मतलब ये चीज़ थोड़ा सा डिफरेंट हो रही है, अब मैं इकोनॉमिक साइड जा रहा हूँ, तो ये मैं पूछ रहा था कि अगर मेरा मेन जो ब्रांच है वो स्टैटिस्टिक्स है, जो कि डायरेक्ट रिलेट करता है डेटा साइंस से। तो हमारे प्रोफेसर ने हमसे बोला था कि अगर तुम्हें पीएचडी परसू करना है तो बहुत फील्ड स्पेसिफिक रहना पड़ेगा, लाइक स्टैटिस्टिक्स ही पढ़ो। तो वही क्वेश्चन मैं पूछ रहा था, क्या ये चीज़ें डिफरेंट हो रही है? तो क्या यूरोप में अगर हम पीएचडी के लिए जाना चाहते हैं तो क्या चीज़ कोई प्रॉब्लम?
मैं समझ गया आपका आपका क्वेश्चन। तो नहीं, उसके लिए ज़रूरी नहीं है कि आप एक ही चीज़ में करें। जनरली थोड़े थोड़े पीएचडी पोजीशंस के लिए इनफैक्ट आपको रिक्वायरमेंट ये रहती है कि आपको इसका भी एक्सपीरियंस चाहिए और इसका भी एक्सपीरियंस चाहिए, तो 2 चीज़ों में एक्सपीरियंस चाहिए। बहुत सारे पीएचडीज में ऐसा है। तो इसीलिए इनफैक्ट ये जो आप स्टैटिस्टिक्स में बैचलर्स कर रहे हैं और इकोनॉमिक्स में मास्टर्स कर रहे हैं, तो इसका कॉम्बिनेशन आप यूज करके पीएचडी के लिए अप्लाई कर सकते हैं। तो कोई उसमें वो नहीं है, प्रॉब्लम नहीं है इसका मेरे हिसाब से, इंशाल्लाह जी। इज देयर एन इशू ऑफ डिस्क्रिमिनेशन ऑन द बेसिस ऑफ रिलीजन और नेशनैलिटी? नेशनैलिटी का तो उतना नहीं है, रिलीजन का भी नहीं है। मैं बोल नहीं सकता, मतलब सिलेक्शन प्रोसेस में तो आई थिंक नहीं है कुछ भी डिस्क्रिमिनेशन। अब लैब्स में आई डोंट नो, हर लैब का अलग रहता डिस्क्रिमिनेशन। ये सब्जेक्टिव इशू है डिस्क्रिमिनेशन का। मैं ऑब्जेक्टिव आंसर नहीं दे सकता हूँ इसका।
Okay, we are already late, so we
Perfect.
should finish. Okay, you will get the recorded webinar on our website and the Facebook group as well, and the SSMF YouTube channel. So thank you very much, Brother Shoaib. Jazakallah khair
भैया
for your precious time, and all the audience, thank you very much for being here. Okay.
चलो, अस्सलाम वालेकुम।
Walaikum assalam. Rashid bhai, you want to add something or?
No, it's okay. You can follow us on all our pages so that you could get update from anything we will update on our website or YouTube channel. You can follow us on our every platform like LinkedIn, Facebook, etc.
Yeah, you will find everywhere.